SpaceX launches its Falcon 9, Japan its H-IIA, and what is that? Hey guys, Lucas here, welcome to K-News for week 51, and as always a big shout out to my K-News boosters on Patreon. Thanks for your trust, and of course, thanks to SquarePants for sponsoring this video. Okay, jokes aside, the first rocket this week is Japan's H-IIA, beating SpaceX Falcon 9 by only 1 minute, launching on December 23rd at 1:26 UTC. On top H-IIA are the Global Change Observation Mission and a Super Low Altitude Test Satellites, or SLATs for short. Both will be shot into a sun-synchronous polar orbit, and latter will slowly decrease its altitude below 200 kilometers, where it will demonstrate how satellites can be operated on such low altitudes. Orbiting closer to ground allows a satellite not only to create more detailed images, but it also simply orbits faster to make more orbits per day. It's actually quite interesting because it has a very flat profile, like a rod, and solar panels which look like fins. This unusual body will allow it to consume fewer fuel than an ordinary one by minimizing the drag and therefore fuel consumption to offset the thicker air density. Sounds ideal for massive communication satellite constellations like the one SpaceX is planning, since out-of-control satellites would burn up rather quickly. The second rocket to launch, as mentioned a minute later, is SpaceX Falcon 9. It will take off from Vandenberg at 1:27 UTC and will not attempt to land this time. The reason is not the payload, because 10 Iridium satellites are well within Falcon 9's margins to return the booster to the drone ship, and SpaceX has done so 3 times in the past already. But more on that in just a minute. Up top are Iridium 31 to 40 from a total of 75. The upper stage and the booster are below, and since it will not attempt to land, there is no need for grid fins or landing legs, so it will fly without. Similar to H-IIA before, Falcon 9 will also head to a polar orbit and tilt south right after liftoff. This gravity turn is necessary to not only get to space, but to stay there, just in case you are new to my channel. A satellite flies in circles called orbits quickly to fight gravity, pulling it towards the ground. On the way there, the main booster will stage away once it's empty, which is normally when SpaceX performs their one-of-a-kind maneuver to land the booster back on a ship. However, not so this time, so the complete rocket will just crash into the ocean and become some kind of reef deep down under the sea. The exact reason for this was not officially published yet, but there are some rumors. One states that the drone ship is not operational and on its way to the east coast for the upcoming Falcon Heavy launch because the other ship is damaged. However, another rumor is completely different from that, saying SpaceX just doesn't need another old booster core. They have almost a dozen piling up already, and you just can't sell such hardware on eBay. This particular booster is an older and used one from type Block 3. SpaceX is already flying Block 4 and Block 5 is just around the corner. Only the latest version will include the necessary changes to make it really reusable to fly more than twice. Anyways, if you're more interested into the Iridium payload, I actually have a special episode on that one you can check out if you like. Now in the end I want to talk about the SpaceX MEGAKRAKEN. I made that name up, to be honest, but SpaceX has really built a Kraken or Kraken-like ship. In German it would be pronounced Kraken. The ship itself is named Mr. Steven and features 4 gigantic arms in the back, which look like they wanted to give someone a big hug, or like a funny doodle. However, the ship has a very special use case, and that is of course to catch the rocket's fairings, or at least one of them. I don't know if it will be used this time around, but it is at the Los Angeles port waiting for action. How this will look like is a little speculative, so please take this with a grain of salt. While the ship waits in the middle of the ocean, like a drone ship, the fairings separate from the rocket and begin their glide down to re-enter back into the atmosphere. Keeping them from tumbling around out of control are cold gas thrusters, similar to what the booster uses to orient itself. It's basically just highly pressurized gas which is released in puffs through a small nozzle. Very inefficient but also very simple. Once within the atmosphere, the fairing would start by releasing a small inflated ball which drags it behind to stabilize the atmospheric flight. Once below a certain speed, the small ball would then be used to pull out the steerable parachute. It would then glide towards the ship, which would slowly speed up. On the ship itself could be some kind of lights, maybe the fairing would follow once close up. It would keep the same heading and slowly descend to land on a net stretched out around those 4 gigantic arms. I don't know if this is a test and the second fairing will just crash into the ocean, or if the crew can get the fairing off the net quickly enough for the second to land as well. For that, the first could take a quicker route downwards, while the other one would fly in circles like a hungry falcon around the ship. It sounds really complicated, but once everything is stable, it should fly like a normal glider. Way easier than to land a booster. Whatever will happen, I really hope we will finally see some footage of it. That would be a cool Christmas present. Speaking of it, I wish you a Merry Christmas, guys, and in case there will be no more video next week, also a Happy New Year. Okay, that shall conclude this week's episode, and I hope to see you next one if you like. Auf Wiedersehen and thank you for watching.